Ooh.
All right, everybody, welcome. You have made it. This is Open Source Friday. It's Fridays where we talk to open source maintainers about the projects they work on. Sometimes we actually contribute to projects. Sometimes we build projects. And I'm super stoked to have Evan Yu here. Evan,
Hello.
welcome. Just about behind your head, you've got the Vue logo, and you're the
Yep.
creator of Vue, maintainer, one of the maintainers of Vue as well. And
Yep.
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us why you're here today?
Sure. My name is Evan Yu, and I wrote Vue.js. I'm the team lead of Vue.js. But in the past few months, I've also been working on a project called Vite, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. So Vite was initially created somewhat related to Vue, but now it kind of evolved into its own thing. And I'm kind of hoping that it can benefit developers, especially front-end developers, not just Vue users, like all front-end developers.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's funny because I've definitely I know we chatted what was it last week for a completely different project, but I'd never heard Vite said out loud, and I always called it Vite up until very
Yeah,
recently.
a lot of people discovered that. I, I I don't know. Like I picked the name. It's actually a French word. In French, it means fast or quickly. So I thought it's cool to stick to its original pronunciation, but we are now kind of in a dilemma because some people are like, if Vite is pronounced in the French way, then why isn't Vue pronounced in the French way? Because Vue is actually a French word as well. So um, to that, my only explanation is just stick to whatever the author prefers, I guess.
Yeah, and sorry, I was just messing with the screens because I did see that somewhere. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
French word for fast. So all the all the tips on how to speak French is right here in the README as well. So appreciate
Yep.
y'all doing that. Excellent. So I guess what's the high level of what Vite is? Like fast is one of the keywords, but like how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's actually a little hard, which is why every time people ask me to explain what it is, like there's no really concise one sentence description of it. Uh, but if you want to make a comparison, like if you've been using, I think the closest thing in existence is Parcel, like the in terms of what it does and what it kind of affords you. But Parcel Bundler,
Yeah, Google's not helping
yeah,
me today.
yeah,
There we
but
go.
obviously, like the difference is in how it's implemented, and in terms of how the dev server works, it's fundamentally different. But in terms of what it does, you can think of it as something that takes some of your code and serve it. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it's a dev server and a pre-configured bundler all in the same thing. So like we can call it a front end build tool, but that's so generic. People just kind of it doesn't really explain anything in itself. So I'm kind of struggling to come up with a really concise way to describe what it is, which is why like I kind of want to do this live stream because I think it's actually easier to just show people like what it does and how it works. So you get a very direct understanding of, oh, this is what it does. Like this is what Vite is.
Yeah, and I think we're actually so I do a lot of front end myself. I come from like a
Mhm.
React background. I've kind of some Vue projects too on GitHub as well, and I feel like we're going through an evolution that we're sort of seeing. I think we saw this 5 years ago, probably longer than that, with like Webpack and how folks
Mhm.
just sort of adopted that type of bundler.
Yep.
I'm not trying to keep bundlers, as a one-to-one comparison because I know you're having trouble describing what this is.
Yep.
But I think we are looking through an evolution. I think we're now seeing even some of the hosting providers who are now adding all these bells and whistles and new features. Like we're ready for the next wave, and that's why the stream is called the next frontier. Or actually, what is the stream called? I accept the title, and I don't even know what it's called. But the next front end tooling system generation. That's what it was.
Yep.
But yeah, excellent. So why Vite at this point in time?
So I think Vite is essentially like a Vite alongside Snowpack, WMR, web dev server. I think we all come at a time where native ES modules has finally somewhat reached. It's close to being universally available. Finally, right? If we disregard IE11, then the latest version of all these major browsers all support native ES modules. It's now usable in Node.js as well. The ecosystem is finally now starting to do this sort of huge migration where everyone is finally, okay, we have a standard module system now, and it runs natively in the browser. So a lot of the assumptions about tooling, especially like for tooling, if you assume that all the code is going to be standard ES modules, you can lean up a lot of stuff. You can delegate a lot of stuff to browsers or some tools that just handle specific parts of the workflow faster than existing tools. And I think that's where this next generation of tools is going to be focused on is, finally we have this native standard module system that's going to be somewhat universal. And how can we sort of reimagine the tooling and just kind of take this opportunity to rethink what a clean slate or a faster version of what we are doing today could be like.
Yeah. So speaking of fast, I know we prepared to share some screens too as well. I don't know if we want to jump in and give like high level of what to do with Vite and how to sort of get installed or involved with the project.
Sure, yeah. So I think I'm just gonna start sharing my screen right now because I think that's going to be the. All right. So
Yep.
Yeah. So this is my screen, and if you go to get started, it's going to ask you to use Node.js and like use this init Vue.js app. But this is really for for people who don't want to go through like manual stuff. But like today, we're not going to do that. So what I want to do today is just like. Here is a fresh demo. Like I have an empty demo folder. There's nothing here. So I'm just going to do yarn add Vite, yarn add the Vite. Probably gonna make this bigger. So I just installed it. It doesn't scroll to the end. Why? Okay. So installed pretty fast. So Vite is, let's take a look at the node modules. It's 18 megabytes. So it's also very small amount of modules that's actually being installed because we pre-bundle most of them to just make sure the install is faster. This is why compared to something like maybe create React app, you're probably going to see a noticeable difference in terms of just installing this thing itself, like how much faster it is. So now we have this thing here. Yeah, so I have these. Let's just ignore all of the existing stuff. I'm just going to create an index.
Can you explain what we're looking at too as well? These are the node modules.
Yeah. So this is just after you run npm install yarn add. This is just what it creates. Just doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to create an Index.html file and say hello. And then I'm going to, so you can do npm Vite here.
You might have to raise up your terminal window a little bit.
Okay, let's just move it here then. Okay, or I'm going to just go in here, add a script. So I'm going to say dev Vite. And then, move this up, yarn dev. So I started the dev server. Notice that I didn't do anything other than just running this, right? So you can kind of think, so at the bare minimum, think of it as a static file server, right? You probably use something like serve or like HTTP static server, whatever, like whatever static file server you use to locally serve a directory of static files, right? Yeah. Think of Vite, just the Vite command does that, right? at the bare minimum. So you see hello, and that's the index.html being served.
So this is
Right.
kind of like the so I use a lot like npx serve as a serve npm file. Are you familiar with that package?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so far out of the box, I can get a very similar command to serve just static files.
Yeah, right. So it's a
Excellent.
static file server, but it's not, obviously it's not meant for serving it in production, right? Because
Yeah.
it does all these development stuff. So I edit and save, and just we get like page reload out of the box. And with native modules, with native ESM, you can do script type of module, right? So you can do you can either do import here in line. Let's just do that, actually, main.js. So it tells you it failed to resolve main.js because it doesn't exist. So I'm going to create that here. And so reload the page. So make sure the console actually logs hello. So you also see this Vite Connect thing, which is our hot module replacement client that's being run. So if you edit your file here, it also reloads page. And you can see this main.js file has been updated and reloaded. So this is not real hot module replacement going on, because this is just simply reloading the page. But it tracks all the things that's being imported from your index.html to know that if you edit this file, I need to reload the page. If you edit other things, I don't need to care about it. And then some of the common stuff that we may want to do is like link to CSS files. So let's just say style.css, h1 color red. You can obviously just use a link, right? So style.css. So notice here I can, because it's a actual HTTP server, you can use like absolute paths here. It's just like what you'd expect. So we got this thing showing red on the screen. And if I edit it here.
So you're mentioned about the absolute paths. Someone's asking in the chat how to use Vite from another folder than just root.
How to use it from another folder?
Yeah, so I guess if you had like your CSS in like a styles folder, or like I guess you could still do relative paths too.
Yeah, you can do relative paths. You can even alias stuff. It also follows all the npm node modules resolve algorithm.
Okay.
Which we'll show in a bit. But as you can see, like even via the simple link here, and notice how when I edit this thing, the page actually didn't reload. It's hot updating the CSS in place.
So what's making that work? Is it Vite's the running server? Magic?
Okay. Yeah, so Vite is doing the work of recording the relationship. So one thing I kind of want to point out is like when a lot of users coming from Webpack, they're so used to thinking of this main.js as their entry point of application and HTML being the afterthought. So in Vite, it's kind of think of it as a server. So your HTML is actually your entry point. And Vite actually parses everything here to consider it a module graph entry. So style CSS is considered part of the module graph. This thing is turned into an inline module, and which imports this main.js, which is another module. So notice how like index.html is actually the entry point to your application. And it's kind of from there, we construct the whole module graph of your application. Instead of like we're going from here, then going backwards and figure out what the HTML should be. Right? So that's kind of a thing a lot of people kind of have to sort of flip a switch in order to get into Vite. I think Parcel does this too, right? So Parcel is kind of the pioneer of this concept of HTML being your entry and being part of the module graph. And I think that's kind of the, for web development in particular, this is just, for me, it's a more natural sort of mental model to work with. But either way, right? So what Vite does under the hood is we actually record all these import relationships between the HTML and the CSS files. So we can we get to actually just update this linked CSS in place. And so that's right. This is not too much different from, say, a static file server. So some of the things we also do out of the box is, let's say we have style.module.css. I'm going to say,
what's the module keyword? I've actually not seen that before.
Right. So this is a convention, right? So if you've worked with CSS modules, it's kind of a convention to name your files with this module.css postfix. And in Vite, this is also a convention. So if we see a file named like this, and I'm going to say text color red. And then I'm going to comment out this one. And I'm going to say import classes from style.module.css. Let's just log this. And as you can see, it gives you this object with text in it. So this is a class name. So I'm going to say document.querySelector h1.class name equals classes.text. And now we get red here. So if we edit this thing here, it also reloads. So this is not hot module replacement, but you get the idea, right? So we have a lot of these big conventions here. So imagine if you previously had a project with plain Webpack, and now you say, I want to work with CSS modules. You probably have to go through a guide of teach you what CSS loader is, what style loader is, what.
I've definitely been down that path.
Then you need to look at all the post CSS configurations for CSS loader, add those loaders to your Webpack config, and you get what I mean, right? So, so the idea of Vite is it's pretty opinionated. It has a lot of these kind of things built in, and to sort of minimize the hoops you need to jump through to get certain things working. Similarly, if you want to have custom post CSS configs, so you just add a post CSS config thing, you export a post CSS config. So this is similar to how you get Tailwind CSS working, because Tailwind itself is really a post CSS plugin, right? So if you want to configure Tailwind with Vite, let's see. How can we get that working? I probably need to go to Tailwind CSS. And I'm going to look for Vite. I think there is a guide with Vite here. Yes.
Yeah. So while you're looking for that, there's some question that came in the chat. Mm-hmm. Is there, so similar to like Create React app, is there like an eject feature, or is you just get Vite and that's it?
So here's the thing, like there's really no need to eject. So Vite has its own configuration format, but it's not based on Webpack. The idea is CSS module is something that just works in Vite. There's really like, if you want to configure it, yes, you can. You just create a Vite config.js. And you can say export default, CSS modules. Then these options will be passed on to the post CSS modules plugin. So you can configure like low-code convention to be camel case only if you want. Like if you use CSS modules, you know what this does, but like most of these built-in stuff is also configurable. But the thing is, my personal opinion is, because I've worked, we maintain vue-cli for Vue, right? Yep. Vue-cli is built on top of Webpack, and we ship a lot of these stuff out of the box in vue-cli as well. So we have, in some way, if you use Vite with Vue, you almost get identical feature set with vue-cli in terms of what you can do with source code. But we have to maintain a pretty complicated Webpack config internally. And when people want to configure that, it's typically quite involved. And the idea with Vite is we essentially extracted a lot of these things that we know, like users will need this in a typical project. And also because over time, it kind of, in Vue CLI, we've come to these conclusions like this is kind of the sensible default. Most people will want this. So that's how we're going to present it in Vite by default as well. And if there are certain things that we know that users will want to customize, we expose them via an option. And the plugin system of Vite is also pretty flexible, but I don't think we want to dig into that just as yet.
Yeah. So I guess understanding these conventions, like as I was talking about the bundlers and how we've sort of advanced and now where everybody's got like new things they're looking forward, like the next generation.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there are strong opinions happening now in front end, the JavaScript world, because when you talk about like the Webpack, like I'm triggered where I've definitely got to the point where I want to use this new thing, like Tailwinds at the time, but I don't know how to get it like in my Webpack config, and there's sometimes there's some hoops I have to jump through. Sometimes there's two different plugins that are competing against each other for space, and sometimes I need both of them. And like I've sort of been burnt out enough about that situation, but it sounds like with Vite, a lot of the stuff's just working out of the box.
Yeah, I think it's so being more strongly opinionated doesn't. I think it's just the different value proposition and different sort of how at which level the tool wants to live at.
Yeah.
Webpack itself, I think, is still kind of very low level. The downside is when you have such a low level abstraction and you want to allow all the higher level features to be configurable in user space, the complexity just explodes.
Yeah.
Whereas if the tool comes in and say, hey, I just want to be opinionated, so I can manage much more for the user. And because the tool gets to manage all these things together, so the tool gets to sort of work all these systems in somewhat smoother because you have more control at the tooling layer instead of forcing the user to figure out all these, how to get plugging feature A to be compatible with feature B and all that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's not necessarily saying like, I think it's actually a miracle that you can make all these things work with Webpack, just like looking at all the plugins and loaders that you put together. But like if over time, I think we come to the conclusion that most users don't really want to deal with that. So if the tool can sort of already handle most of these stuff in an opinionated way for them, they are happy to sort of just follow along. And I think that takes time too, because like we as an ecosystem, as the community, we needed something to pave the way, like Webpack, right? Then we try to put all these things together on top of Webpack, and then we realize, okay, we finally come to this sort of almost a shared convention, like how we deal with CSS, how we deal with certain types of features, right? So if you look at things across like Create React App or Vue CLI or Next.js, a lot of the stuff is shared, right? We're doing a lot of similar stuff on top of Webpack. So I think we finally reached a time where most users almost take some of these as sort of granted. They think, oh, it's natural that I'm able to import CSS. It's natural that I'm able to just use post CSS out of the box. So I think Vite is just in some way, it's like, okay, if that's what people are used to already, then we can sort of just go directly to provide it out of the box, right?
Yeah. And so question, so we just saw you do a bunch of commands with Vite. How about, like, how do we compare this with the Vue CLI? Are they going to be working together eventually, or do they work together today?
They don't work together today because Vue CLI is still Webpack based. So
Okay.
in the long term, we probably want to eventually migrate Vue CLI to be Vite based. So Vue CLI in terms of scope is a little bit higher level than Vite because it also includes, scaffolding.
Yeah.
It has more built-in scaffolding. It has this like its own plugin system, which I don't know if we want to keep if we eventually migrate to Vite, but Vue CLI lives at a higher level where it's Vue specific, has more scaffolding, and also gives you more opinionated integration with like test runners and all this stuff. So it's an even more complete solution. So It's interesting, yeah. So Vite is like higher level than Webpack, but lower level than Vue CLI, somewhere in between.
Got it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing things like that being integrated to Vue CLI because
Mm-hmm.
I like the opinions you get with the CLI because I don't want. I spend a lot of time working through different frameworks and different projects that I have to context switch quite a bit, especially in my role at GitHub because
Mm-hmm.
we just ship a lot of random stuff and then
Yeah.
move on to the next thing. I think it's like a DevRel thing really, and I imagine folks who do like they do a lot of production sites and like agencies. So my question is Vite extendable in other different frameworks and within the JavaScript ecosystem?
Yeah, definitely. So there are several different ways to look at it. So first of all, Vite is framework agnostic, so you can use it to work with almost any like front-end framework of choice. And then Vite itself exposes a pretty well-defined JavaScript API, so you can use Vite inside a higher level tool. So an example is Vite Press, which is a static site generator that is built on top of Vite. It actually wraps Vite internally and does a bunch of opinionated stuff on top of it, which I can probably showcase a bit.
Do you have something prepared?
Streams. Not really, but it's pretty cool because it doesn't really need like I really like this live stream that I can just show how it works instead of talking about it actually.
Yeah. I personally, we talked about this before we went live, but I love the fact, and I know a lot of folks are on the stream who haven't been here before on Open Source Friday, but it's an opportunity for us to have conversations about projects, open up the web browser and talk as opposed to like a podcast where you have to talk high level and sort of walk through different patterns without getting to actually show it. And then I don't know how many people read the show notes, but it's nice to see you just give us the examples right here and right in front of us.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to just like quickly get Tailwind going because so this is just installing a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to use yarn add D with all these Tailwind stuff, right? So these are just like standard dependencies that Tailwind wants you to install. And once you install that, I'm going to Tailwind. Wait, is that Tailwind CSS in P? So if you're wondering why I was able to run that without the npx prefix, because I configured my path to include the node modules in the current directory. So I can always run the bins in the current node modules in the current directory without any prefix.
Okay, that's just your personal development environment.
Yeah, that's just the thing that I do.
Okay, I mean, the other thing I love about this is I get to learn from other people how to write code. It's like I'm pair programming with you, but I'm really just sort of in the passenger seat watching you code. And but yeah, I love this.
Cool. So like, we got
loving this as well. Just a heads up.
Mm-hmm. So I just created this Tailwind config.
Yep.
This post CSS config. So there's really nothing special to do here other than this thing. I mean, this is kind of somewhat Vue specific. So we'll ignore this because this is like a Tailwind specific thing. But this is the source code you want to actually just copy and put here. And just re-enable this. And then, okay, so page is actually already reloaded. So I think I should have Tailwind CSS in there. So I want to, I don't use Tailwind CSS and just like often enough. I think something like class equals 3XL. No. I don't use Tailwind.
Actually, if anybody is a Tailwind expert, if you want to drop whatever the it's text-3XL.
Yep. Text-3XL.
See, this is the other thing, the mob programming with Twitch.
So it doesn't really work. Wondering why it's not working. Let's see.
Yeah, there's some other I don't know if you have the chat open, but text-XS. Yeah, everybody's now searching the docs for you too as well.
Yeah. Wait, it's not actually updating the index.html.
Does it need to be?
Oh, because I'm actually overriding it here.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So now text3sl still isn't really working. So style.css. So the cool thing another thing I want to showcase here is when you're debugging with something like Vite, because we don't concatenate everything. So the easiest way to debug stuff is just looking at the network tab, because every module is actually an individual request here. So I'm just going to look at this, and it's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
I think this is because I didn't restart the server.
Is that, yeah, there's
No?
importing the Tailwind library. Do you have to do that in the file?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, something changed.
Yeah, so I restarted server because it didn't load the post CSS config previously. It cached before I restart, I added the post CSS config and the server was like, I didn't notice it's already here. So
yeah. Well, that just goes to show that even Evan Yu needs to debug sometimes. Can't just live code on whim.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just looking at the index.html, we're not importing the CSS. Oh, we are. Line 2. Got it.
We're using this link here.
Got it.
So it works. As you can see, post CSS also works over these normal links, right? Because this is treated as a dependency in Vite as well. So if you have like nested at imports inside the CSS file, we also trace all of that. We also kind of record the module graph, the dependency chain. So when you edit like nested at imported CSS files, we also do hot module replacement and all that. Okay, so that's it. I think we're gonna wrap it up here for CSS. Actually, maybe also showcase something like, I'm going to yarn add the Sass. So I'm just installing Sass itself, and I'm going to create a new file called style.scss, and then color red. Is that the syntax? So I wrote some SCSS, and I'm going to just link it like this. So yeah, so you install Sass, and then you can use Sass or SCSS, and it just works like this. Of course, you can also do it like this if you want. Works the same way. Or you can do something like this. Also works, right? So most of the conventional stuff that you expect that should work, it probably will work.
Okay.
And this is because we didn't do anything here, so I'm just going to change this to style.scss and reloads the page.
Nice. And then real quick, going back to the Vite config, we didn't do much to set this up. We did create some Postgres. That was the config that we had before, so we didn't really do anything to make this work.
Yeah, we didn't really, like, this is actually unnecessary right now because I was just showing how you can customize CSS modules.
Yeah. Okay, excellent.
Yeah. So technically, like, anything you don't need, just like remove them and it doesn't affect anything. Like if you just want Sass, like this is all you need to work with Sass. Like, so really, like, it's more like if you want to go the super minimal route, like, you just have your HTML CSS in JavaScript, optionally with post CSS or a preprocessor. Like, this is not much from a static file server, except it magically knows some of the stuff that you want to use. Okay, so this is for people who want to just like have a smarter server, right?
Yeah.
But we can do more than this, obviously.
So
right.
the one use case that I have, and because I've been doing so much Twitch streaming this year, and we just had a live stream last week, me and Michelle from Australia. I don't know why I was making that distinction, but we built a Twitch bot. And the one thing I've noticed with things like OBS, so like right now we're leveraging OBS to get everything on the screen at the moment, is that it has a JavaScript runtime. And I've been messing around with using like Deno and JS time inside of OBS. I haven't really published anything that works yet, but I'm curious of things like you talked about TypeScript, but what about things like Deno? Will that be compatible?
Deno probably. So Deno is a whole different story because
Yeah.
Deno is its own thing. So Vite is currently built on top of Node.js APIs, so
Got
it's
it.
not going to be trivial to get it running in Deno.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Yeah. All right, so let's see what we can do next. I'm going to add a dependency now. So let's say I want to use React, right? All right, so I added React and React DOM, and so inside main.js, we probably want to change this to JSX because we're going to use some JSX. So I'm going to say import React from React. Import React DOM from React DOM. I think that's how it works. So forgive me because I'm actually React DOM dot render.
We all came to watch Evan Yu write React.
Yeah, get element by ID app maybe. So that means we need to have something here. So I'm going to say div app. And so the main thing I'm actually showcasing here is not really like React, but we need an app, right? So function app return h1 hello. So let's see. Nope. Of course, because we changed it to main.jsx. Yeah, so I'm going to change it here. All right, so we got hello on the word. So this is rendered by React. And as you can see, JSX just kind of worked out of the box as well. You didn't need to configure anything. It kind of just worked. So same for so if you use TSX, and let's just like export function app like this. So remember you need React because we are using the React 16 transform. And instead of that, I'm going to say import app from app. And it works the same way. All right, so TypeScript, JSX, TSX, works out of the box. You can just import them and they just work. You didn't even need to install TypeScript itself. The assumption here is you will likely be doing type check and run. So when you're developing, your IDE probably knows something, right? So say you can add a TS config here and your IDE will start linking these TS files and give you errors and warnings. So Vite itself doesn't care about any of the type checks. All it does is transform the syntax into actual JavaScript that the browser can understand. And it does that using ESBuild. So this is where we start to actually already leveraged ESBuild in two places up to this point. The first is ESBuild is transforming these JSX and TSX files into plain JS for us. So for those who don't know what ESBuild is, it's a JavaScript build tool, transpile tool that's written in Go. So it's compiled to native binaries, and it's extremely fast.
And that was shipped pretty recently, wasn't it?
It's actually been around for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it just made the newsletters recently. Okay.
Yeah, it takes a time for these kind of projects to mature because it's covering so much features. But the basic idea here is when you install Vite, we already installed ESBuild for you, so you didn't need to install anything extra to get these transpilations, and this is at least 20 to 30 times faster than vanilla TSC. So PSC will probably take like 30, 40 milliseconds to transpile a TSX file, but with ESBuild, it's like 1 millisecond most of the time. And Vite leverages that. So imagine if you have a project with like 100 TS files. So that kind of adds up, right? Another aspect of this is when we started server here, notice this thing here, it says new dependency found React and React DOM. If you are used to using React with like create React app or Webpack, you're kind of used to like doing like import React from React like this, and it just works. And sometimes we may even do things like, you know, named exports like this, right? But if you actually look at what the files React is shipping, let's go into React here and look at the package.json here. It says main index.js. So index.js, it says module.exports equals require blah, blah, blah. And this is actually common.js. So React doesn't ship native ES modules. It ships common.js. Ships common.js, but we are able to just import it like an actual ES module here. So there's obviously something going on in the background. Webpack, Rollup, you know, if you use this with Rollup, you will need something like Rollup plugin common.js.
Yeah.
Webpack does a lot of the interop behind the scene, but how do we get to make React actually work in the browser? So let's take a look at the network here. Oh God, how do I can't get to grab this part. Anyway, so here's the React. So notice that we are getting this require React. So all this code is actually generated by ESBuild. So when we restart the server, if I say Vite force, there is a thing here that says.
What's the force command?
The force means ignore the dependency cache and reforce process all the dependencies.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So if you don't do that, it will check some hash, and if the hash matches, it won't need to do anything when you restart the server. But if you've passed the force, it will, you know.
You just said pass the force.
Yeah. So it will detect it. So what Vite is doing here is it will look at your source code. Notice you are relying on React and React DOM. And then it will check React and React DOM and notice they are not actually ES modules, which means we need to do something about them. So we will use ESBuild to process them, pre-bundle them into something that actually works in the browser as native ES modules. And we have some also smart interop so that you can use named exports, even though technically a common JS module transformed to ES module like only has a single default export. But like we kind of make that work with some runtime interop. And the benefit of this is kind of twofold. The first is you make common JS modules work as native ES modules. Another benefit of this is, say, you have something like low-es. Low-es has like 600 internal modules. When you import low-es, without any optimization, you're loading all those 600 modules here. So if you look at the network tab, when you load, maybe I can just do that, you know, yarn add low-es, and I'm gonna say import from low-es. Well, that didn't actually result in a lot of requests because our server, the Vite server, smartly detected low-es and chunked into a single file on the fly. So if Vite didn't do that, you will see like 600 requests here, and it's gonna jam the browser. Even though it's relatively fast, it's like there is still a lot of overhead when you process an HTTP request, right? So ideally, even during dev, we still want to reduce the number of requests, but Vite kind of does this for you so that even if you import a dependency with even 1,000 internal modules, we still kind of chunk it into a single file.
Yeah.
And because we do that with ESBuild, it's so fast, like how much time? It did this within like a second, right? Less than a second. But if you do this with, say, something, so this comes into play, like, because even with huge dependencies, maybe like, you're at material UI core. So this is going to be pretty intense, right? From material UI core. So we finished that. We imported material UI core. And still it takes less than a second. Granted, this is, I'm running on an M1 ARM Mac, which is insanely fast, but still like this same thing, if you process it with say Webpack or Rollup, you probably have to wait a few seconds. So this is where ESBuild really makes this process just like insanely fast. And some of the noticeable differences, like I've tested this on a real world app using React and Material UI and a bunch of other dependencies. And I tried to pre-bundle with Rollup and it took me 28 seconds on an M1 Mac.
And out of curiosity, are you on an M1 Mac right now?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, there's speculation in the chat right now.
Yeah, so after we switched Vite to use ESBuild for this process, it took 1.5 seconds. So that's like 20 times faster startup time. And because every time you detect a new import or you add new dependencies, the cache will likely invalidate. So you kind of have to do this relatively frequently. So having ESBuild handle this is just like a lifesaver because it's just like cut down the time so much. Most of the time with M1 plus ESBuild, like I'll start getting impatient whenever I start a project and I have to wait more than 1 second.
You're ruined.
Yeah, I'm spoiled, honestly. And also note, like ESBuild, currently ESBuild still only ships the Intel binary. It doesn't have Apple Silicon native binary of ESBuild yet. I think the latest version of Go does support it, but ESBuild hasn't really started shipping the ARM native binaries yet. So we are actually running ESBuild on M1 Mac through Rosetta 2. So imagine it can be another like 20 to 30% faster once we have native ARM Mac ESBuild binaries. So yeah, so this is part of where this Vite the fastness comes into play when you notice the difference when you have not just for a simple demo project, when you have a real project with like hundreds of dependencies, this is start to be a very significant difference in terms of the DX, right? So if you have to wait like half a minute or a whole minute before every time you spin up the dev server, I'm going to be really reluctant to even think about working on that project, right? And this kind of helps me with debugging too, because now like every time someone reports a new thing, I clone the reproduction. It almost always starts instantly. I don't have to like wait. So it just makes debugging Vite itself also much more pleasant.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've got some projects that do actually BW Live. My regular site actually takes quite some time to build. So I won't drop any frameworks, any names down, but it's got some issues. I do have some questions from the chat though. One about production, and is Vite ready for production? I know there's a beta flag on the 2.0 right now in the repo.
So we are actually pretty stable for the past few weeks. No major bugs left really. So there are a few small edge cases. If you have some particularly tricky dependencies where it's like a mix of ES modules and CommonJS, there might be small issues. But for the most part, we already have close to 30,000 downloads per week. And the latest few versions has been pretty stable. So I think we're going out of beta pretty soon. And yeah, one thing I kind of want to talk about is the production story is like when you want to shift to production, let's add a script here. Build, Vite build. So that is literally it. You just run yarn build. So anything that you can have working in dev, theoretically, we guarantee that we guarantee that it will work in build as well. So if it doesn't work as expected, then it's a bug. we'll fix it. But the idea is anything that. So we build it, and we also give you a neat command called Vite preview, which will just serve this directory that we just built, which is the this directory, and it'll serve it in production. So this is the production build. We do a lot of interesting stuff in production for the production build. And so in the features section or docs here, there is a dedicated section here that says build optimizations. The native target, the default target, build target for Vite is browsers that support native ES modules. So by default, it doesn't support IE11. So this is something to keep in mind. Vite is modern by default, but we do have opt-in support for legacy browsers, which I'll talk about in a bit. But if you're targeting modern only, obviously you don't need to do expensive Babel preset env transpilations, which makes the build faster as well. We automatically polyfill dynamic import so that it works. There is actually a support discrepancy between native ES modules and native ES modules dynamic import. So we polyfill that to just make it even. We have CSS code splitting. So all the code splitting in a Vite project can be done with just ES module dynamic import. So because we treat CSS as part of the module graph as well, we can code split CSS. So if you have an async chunk, a lazy route, all the CSS imported by that route is split into a separate file. And we also, when that chunk is being requested, we fetch the JavaScript and the CSS in parallel.
Yeah.
Then ensure the CSS is loaded before the JavaScript module is evaluated, so you don't get the flash of unstyled content stuff. So this is all done for you out of the box. You don't need to configure anything. If you want to get the same working with Webpack, it's another story. Like you have to look into CSS, mini CSS extract plugin,
Yep.
all this stuff.
The question that's come up quite a few times in the chat, and I wasn't sure if it was relevant, but server-side rendering, with the speed that this does this, I can imagine server-side rendering being a really good story for Vite.
So Vite has currently experimental server-side rendering. So yes, I can. Setting up it from scratch can be a bit involved because the idea here is, but the idea here. So let's take a step back and think about what server-side rendering, what we need with a bundler to get server-side rendering to work. Right? The idea is you want your code to be running in Node.js as well, but we're writing code that's using ESM, and if you are not using like the latest version of Node module, latest version of Node.js with native ES module support, this code won't run, right? Because previous versions of Node.js expects CommonJS. What we're doing here is we provide a programmatic API called SSR load module. So this is inspired by some of the work that Rich Harris is doing in SvelteKit. The idea here is you can use Vite as a middleware inside an existing Node.js server. So if you're doing server-side rendering, you likely want to control the server yourself, right? So you can use, say, an Express server, run Vite as a middleware inside of it, and then use this method called vite.ssr load module, and load your server entry like this. And that's pretty much it. Your server entry runs in Node.js, and it can use the same ES import syntax to load rest of your application. Obviously, you need to make sure you write your code that is Node compatible, but you can use ES module syntax, and Vite will transform these syntax on the fly into something that's compatible to CommonJS. So it can run in Node.js, and what we typically do in a Webpack-based SSR setup is we actually do a whole SSR bundle as you develop. So it uses Webpack to bundle your whole application and output it as common.js so that it runs in Node.js. The downside of this is obviously every time you edit a file, you are rebundling the whole application for common.js, and that is slow, right? With Vite, when you load this, all these modules are similarly cached individually, just like in the browser, right? One of the reasons we want to leverage native ESM is because each module is now cached individually. So when we do hot module replacement, we're only invalidating the specific modules that's being edited. Similarly, for the server-side rendering story, we cache all these modules that's specifically instantiated for SSR in our internal module graph. And when you edit a file, we only invalidate the certain modules that's affected by this specific edit. So you can kind of think of it as hot module replacement for server-side rendering during development. So you never rebundle your whole app. Also, Vite will smartly externalize dependencies that ships common.js. For example, if you use Vue or React, right? React is already common.js. Right? So if you use React during server-side rendering, you just require it. You don't want to say bundle it, process it. That's unnecessary because React comes as common.js. So Vite will detect all these dependencies, automatically externalize them. And when you import React, it's actually just calling require React under the hood. So you don't pay the cost of processing React as part of your bundle on every change. And a lot of this is done automatically, and we have this guide for server-side rendering. So if you go to our GitHub repo, we also have, actually I can probably show it here.
So what you were just explaining, does that also fall in line with the context of incremental builds?
It's different from incremental builds. So builds are still full because incremental builds are a lot more difficult. This is mostly focused on the development experience, like when you're developing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then real quick, time check. I know we only booked this time for an hour, but I'm good to keep going. If you want to keep going, if you want to finish some thoughts. It seems like the chat is really loving this so far, getting the sort of hands-on experience and looking over your shoulder. So.
Cool. So so if you're interested in server-side rendering with Vite, check out the GitHub repo. So we have this pretty comprehensive playground directory in the source code where it has these demo playground of all the major features. And these are two fully working server-side rendering examples with Vue and React. So if you want to try them out, just use these as references. Cool. So, okay. So of all this, there's one thing I still haven't really mentioned up to this point, which is hot module replacement. So I'm going to just create a new one. Say CVA is my local alias for create Vite app. Vite Vue demo. So so when you run npm init @vitejs/app, this is also what you'll see. So it will run the Vite.js create app application on the fly, and you can pick some of these existing templates that you can go with. All right, so I'm going to just go with the basic Vue template here. See, Vite Vue demo. I'm going to just use my locally linked Vite, install the dependencies, and I get. So this is a Vue 3 app that's running on Vite. Let me open this in code. So this is very standard. If you've worked with Vue CLI before, this will feel right at home, right? Most of the stuff is the same. So obviously, if I edit something, I'm going to hit the counter just to show that the HMR doesn't actually blow the state away, right? And HMR is really, really fast. So the idea here is if you're working on a large application, right, reloading the page on every edit is obviously not optimal, especially say you have some page state where you're like, I want to see how this dropdown look like when I'm tweaking the logic or tweaking the style. You don't want to have the whole application reload and then you have to reopen the dropdown every time. So hot module replacement is one thing I believe that sort of it decouples the feedback speed from the size of your application, which is again like this whole idea of making things faster is because personally as a developer myself, whenever I'm working on something, if I know something is going to take a long time, I will be reluctant to do it. It just creates this friction, just makes you less likely to do something. It makes you enjoy your work less, right? So if everything is snappy and fast, you're a happier developer, and happier developers are more productive developers. That's what I believe, right? So, and how to make developers happy? Make their tools fast. So that's the whole premise, right? So here, if we take a higher level look at what Vite is trying to do here, why don't we just use ESBuild for everything if it's so fast? The thing is, even if ESBuild is really fast, you probably don't want to rebundle your whole thing on every single edit, right? Because even it's fast, if it's going to get slower and slower, the size of the application grows. The idea is I want to decouple the added feedback from the total size of your application, which is why we need hot module replacement. But the downside, the challenge that we had in the past is like, say with Webpack, I don't know why, but in practice, we've noticed that Webpack's hot module replacement performance just degrades as the size of your application grows, right? Technically, theoretically it shouldn't, but that's what's happening. And say in a large Webpack application, even with hot module replacement, it's not uncommon to wait a few seconds before the thing actually finally updates. But the premise of Vite or other native ESM, hot module replacement over native ESM, the premise is because each module is now cached individually. When you edit a file, we simply invalidate the cache for that specific module, and maybe a chain, an important chain, up to all the way where we can say this is a reload boundary where we can re-import this module from here. So say when you're editing a Vue file, the only thing that's being invalidated is this file itself. So we're not doing any of the extra work saying like, now let's recreate a whole bundle so that then we reload the page, right? There's nothing like that. All we're doing is say, in fact, if we look at the network tab here, oh God, this is too. Can I clear? No, not this one.
This is uncharted territory for me. I've never seen such an active network tab.
Yeah, so right, the cool thing is like everything is imported individually, and so here, okay, this one. So this is the only new network request that we made. Every time we edit, we're just fetching an updated version of this specific file, and then we apply the update precisely. So we don't reload the whole application. We don't need to do any bundling work, and it's as precise as it can be.
Did you mention things like tree shaking? Does Vite, does it grab stuff that's not being used or actively being leveraged?
Tree shaking is more like a production concern because right. During development, you don't really worry about loading a few extra kilobytes of code, right? In production, you do want to leverage tree shaking, but that's kind of what the bundlers do, right? So for production, Vite still uses bundlers. Vite is built on top of Rollup for production. And in fact, Vite plugins are a superset of Rollup plugins. So if you know how to write a Rollup plugin, you already kind of know how to write a Vite plugin.
Okay.
a lot of the concept of like resolve ID, transform, load, they are exactly the same. Vite just extends Rollup's interface to provide a few Vite specific properties or hooks, so to make it easier. Cool. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's anything I kind of want to talk about. We already talked about like built-in framework support. I know there are a bunch of Svelte users working on a Svelte integration for Vite as well. In fact, I know a fork of Rollup plugin Svelte pretty much just works in Vite.
There is a question that came up about just what you just mentioned about Rollup, and why not ESBuild for production?
So the thing here is ESBuild for production still has a bunch of things that, so essentially ESBuild's story for bundling an application is still a little bit incomplete, I would say. I think in the future where ESBuild gets more robust application-oriented bundling support, we'll probably, it's an open possibility that we can switch to it because we already leverage it a lot. The thing here is, for example, you want to have more control over the chunk rendering and the cross import the hash, and then handling assets, emitting files, and then getting the bundle, analyzing the bundle, optimizing the cross imports and all that stuff. With ESBuild, that's sort of, you pretty much don't get any control over the chunking process in ESBuild right now. So that's something, and I know Evan Wallace said he is planning to rewrite code splitting in ESBuild at some point, so which is why we don't really rely on it. I mean, in terms of bundling for bundling applications, Rollup is still a much more, battle test and a more robust choice at this point of time. So obviously it means the production build of Vite is going to be much slower than something that, you leverage ESBuild all the way through. But the benefit is you likely get a more robust and more efficient bundle for production. So one thing you can do is you can use ESBuild as the minifier. So the default minifier is Cursor, but you can say vite-build -- minify ESBuild. So we can use ESBuild as the minifier, which already speeds up the build by quite a bit. But in most cases, the bundle will be slightly larger. So it's a trade-off that you can make your call yourself. Are you willing to trade maybe 5 to 10% larger bundle in return for faster builds? It's up to you. Okay,
excellent. Yeah, and I think the last question would be, how can folks stay up to date with Vite, check out the releases, and are you taking contributions right now as you're approaching the leaving the beta train?
Yeah, we have a lot of contributors already. So the easiest way to stay in touch is go to this Twitter handle, at Vite_JS. Unfortunately, the no underscore version is already taken. Whoops.
I wonder what that project is.
Yeah. And so Vite.js, and then we already have a lot of contributors on GitHub. Feel free to... Oh, also we have this chat.vitejs.dev. That's our Discord server. So if you want to join Discord,
I didn't realize Discord was allowing domains.
Oh, this is just a custom redirect.
Oh, you redirected. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was a Discord feature. Okay.
Yeah. So chat.vitejs.dev. You get an automatic invite into our Discord server, and there's a pretty cool community going on there. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time, Evan, and walking through this. I think it's a really good format, and hope you definitely pick up on the live streaming game. Folks if you have enjoyed this, you can definitely find Evan. He has a Twitter, or sorry, he has a Twitter, but he also has a Twitch. So, which you mentioned your Twitch is different. Is it different than what's on the screen?
Twitch is it's the same handle on the screen.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so everybody just follow Evan on Twitch to make sure whenever he goes live showing some code, You definitely don't want to miss it. And if you are interested in learning about more projects, definitely follow the channel Open Source Friday. We do have a meetup group for notification reasons. And I also live stream. So my name is here, BWYO. That's who I am. I do a lot of GitHub action work, which I didn't actually shout out my new t-shirt. It's in the GitHub shop at the moment too. So get it before it's sold out. And with that, I think we can go and end the stream. So thanks everybody.
Thank you.